So, Anne, it's probably a good time to start talking about our whisky. And I guess the best place to start talking about or looking at what we produce here is by taking a look at our new makes. In your glass here, you've got some of our Glenturret new make spirit. So firstly, let me tell you that it's 63.5%, this one. I find that I get a fruity character, but there is an underlying sweetness in there. And that's coming from elongated fermentation time. There's a little bit of cereal in it as well, coming from, of course, the barley that we're using. But it's a very elegant, quite soft, subtle spirit. So if you smell it, it's not harsh in any way. In fact, it's incredibly soft and quite subtle. And that is the foundation of all the whiskies that we see here. And ultimately, it provides a great canvas. So feel free to try some. Sledge.
Cheers. It's a very delicate spirit and very floral as well.
There's a real floral, light, smooth character to it. One of the creative ways that we show people our new make spirit is by putting it in a martini.
Has the recipe changed over the past couple of years, or do you tend to keep it very same because it's the foundation of everything, every bottle?
Spirit consistency is of the utmost importance to us. When we change a barley variety, we will see subtle nuance. Perhaps one barley variety will give us a little bit more sweetness, or perhaps something will give us a little bit more of a slightly different character. But of course, that consistency in terms of where we put it right through the distillery is what we concentrate on. And we can map esters, for example, within spirit to understand where exactly they're coming from within the process. And then that enables us to account for difference and to keep consistency all the way through. If you imagine, therefore, that this is the beginning of your journey, we would move from there into what is described by us as the introduction to Glenturret. Triplewood is perhaps the closest relative in character to the spirit that you've tried. So Triplewood, as the name suggests, is 3 cask types brought together. So we start with American oak bourbon barrels, then we introduce American oak seasoned with sherry. Finally, to make the triple, we have European oak sherry seasoned casks. So Triplewood is a great way to understand the distillery style and that DNA. It's the whiskey that you take to a friend's house and enjoy. The age of Triplewood varies, but on average it's between sort of 7 and 8 years old. And this particular release, the 2023, is 43% alcohol by volume. Triplewood makes a great highball, by the way, for a nice summery long drink. It's very refreshing. But let's try some and see how we get on. If you pick it up and give it a little nose.
It smells like honey.
Honey, yeah, I like that you said that. That's great. That soft, subtle is still there. We think about candy apple or toffee apple, and that really is apparent when you give that Triplewood a nose.
Cheers.
Sure. What do you think of the Triplewood? Had you tried it before?
No, I haven't. I've tried the 10-year-old, the peat one. Obviously, this is completely different. And I mentioned to you earlier, it literally tastes like a pastry, melted butter, very sweet. And as you said, like if you open this, you don't need the cork.
It's a whiskey that's perhaps too easy to enjoy, but always responsibly, of course.
In what way is it a good introduction to Glenturret?
So I would say that Triplewood introduces very much our house style. Fruit forward, a little bit of sweetness flitting through, a nod back to the cereal of our beginnings. Coming from that new make spirit that we just tried, the relationship you can see between the two is hopefully for us quite apparent. Mm-hmm. And Triplewood is just a great way, if you've never tried Glenturret before, this is a great example of what we produce here in the style or character, if you like. And it brings us really nicely into moving into the smokier side of what we produce here. And the whiskey we're going to try next is our 7 years old. So the 7 years old is 46% alcohol. It's non-chill filtered. I should mention that everything we do here at the distillery is done with natural colour. So we're not adding anything to change the appearance of it. And if you pick this one up and give it a nose, I think you'll find that this one's a little bit different.
I get paprika.
Okay, yeah, I can
Am I
understand.
on the right track?
Yeah, I can. The thing is, Anne, right, whiskey can taste and smell however you want it. There's no right or wrong answer. And if you smell paprika, then let's
Then
roll
there's
with it.
paprika.
That's it. So the 7-year-old is matured in American oak sherry seasoned casks. So I like to describe the 7-year-old as almost smokier whiskey. We don't say that it's peated, we call it peat smoked, because we firmly believe that it is more smoky than peated. And I'm not ashamed to say that it's one of my favourites within the range. So, thanks.
And it's more bacony on the palate.
Absolutely. It's good you picked that up because it's always interesting because the 7 is quite sweet on the nose, but on the palate that smoke just opens itself out a little bit more, and as you say, that bacon that you might have left on the barbecue a little bit too long, and then you have a little taste of it. Now, if we move on from the 7 and we take a look at our 12-year-old, so the 12-year-old is 46.4% ABV, and it is a combination of American oak sherry and European oak sherry. But we also have some Pedro Jimenez or PX sherry seasoning, as well as Oloroso sherry seasoning. So I like to think the 12-year-old is giving you the best of both worlds, if you like. Because of the PX influence, what we get is PX being a sugar, sort of heavier, darker, more chocolatey, licorice, sort of dates, figs. We get lots of that, but the Oloroso European seasoned casks, they'll bring us more of the tannins, more of the spicy ginger, the flashings of cinnamon, or the dried fruit in a bowl, for example. So working with these two things in balance creates a whiskey that encompasses lots of different flavour. So you might get one thing on the nose, but then on the palate that'll permeate and change into something else. And ultimately, we will play around with the makeups every year. We'll change things ever so slightly across the annual releases. There is commonality, of course, but sometimes there might be more first fill, sometimes there might be more European oak or American oak in it. And we're not afraid to do that, because ultimately what we want to do is create what we feel is the best representation of our whiskey we can every year, and that might be slightly different. Give it a wee nose, see what you think. So you really get a little more of that sherry notes coming through.
I smell like raisins instantly.
Absolutely. It's a little bit more of a heavier nose, but again, showing that softer, sweeter side of what sherry maturation can be. It's certainly not fiery in any way.
No.
It's very elegant in its delivery. Slightly more, dare I say it, viscosity on your palate, and a bit of a longer, denser finish. I would say that within the range, the 15-year-old that we're going to try next is a little bit more sherry influence. This is the 2022 release of our 15-year-old. 53%, and again it just drives forward a little bit more that dried fruit, that almost sultana cake, little bits of fleeting cinnamon and ginger in there, but again that fruit character that we began with is still there, but I would say to you that has changed now into like a stewed fruit, almost like a pastry. You mentioned pastry earlier, like a tarte tatin, or
yes, very jammy.
Yes, jam works. Danish pastry, some jam on, delicious. The 15 years old is very limited, less than 4,000 bottles, and were released of this one in particular. What we're going to do now is we're going to open a bottle of one of the whiskies in what we call our extremely scarce range. So the 30-year-old is a limited run of 500 bottles, and that's globally, so extremely rare, very precious to us. And the 30-year-old is what I would describe as a big tropical fruit bowl.
Okay.
It has notes of banana and lots of fresh fruit forward vibrancy at 30-year-old. And it's a very thoughtful combination of various different casks, including some liquid from a port pipe, a ruby port pipe. So what that does is it gives us lots of that jam, lots of that sort of red berry currants forward. And the 30 years old is just a very summer sort of beautiful sunshine, sitting down, having a picnic, enjoying yourself, and just thinking about life. And from memory, this is round 42%. So yes, it's 42.7% ABV.
That is so different to the other ones.
It's very different,
It's
isn't it?
very, yeah, I get exactly what you said about pineapple and the banana, and I'm not sure if you said pineapple, but I get pineapple.
It's okay. For me, it's very interesting because at 30, you could be forgiven for thinking that you would be looking at something that would be much heavier
Yeah,
than this.
yeah.
But the 30 has such complexity going on that on the initial nose, you're exactly right. It's that freshly chopped mixed fruit salad. You're deriving a lot of that from where you began in the first place.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's still got that floralness from that new make.
I'm so glad you found that. That's good. I'm happy with that. So please, Slange, enjoy. So on the palate, for me, there's an almost chocolatey, truffly sort of note that comes through, almost like a mocha or a slightly darker chocolate.
It tastes like cacao nibs.
There we
Yep.
go. Yeah, and let's work with that. Yeah, we can do that. Finish again, very very light, fresh. I like to think of it as after 30 years, it's the spirit and cask that have decided to work together. There's not one driving the conversation.
Yeah.
Both are equally having their part and playing that part, in my opinion, very well.
Weirdly, even though it was the oldest range that we tried today, it's the most similar to me, at least, with the new make.
Okay.
So I like that story follows through with every single one, but particularly with the 30-year-old. And that it just changes flavour on the palate from compared to the nose as well.
Okay. I guess we want to have a range of whiskey that has something for everyone, no matter what their flavour preference is. And that's something that we're incredibly proud of being hopefully able to achieve. Whether that's for celebrating something in your own life or enjoying an occasion with friends, it's about coming together and enjoying time with some Glenturret whiskey.